Thank you guys for joining today. I'm excited to be here with you, Steven.
Yeah, good to be here.
Thanks for coming. I'm going to talk a little loud because it's noisy. But you have a really unique role at IBM. And so I wanted to take some time not to just to talk about IBM, but more to learn a little bit about you. With Brand Innovators being about networking, I wanted to focus the conversation on that today.
Okay.
So the best way to start is where you started. Where did you grow up?
Grew up kind of all over, mostly in Texas. So I have like a kind of a journey from Texas to Belgium to Texas to Georgia to Texas to Arkansas. So I've kind of been all over in terms of growing up.
Amazing. And so I'm a Texan also, and we're matching with boots. So that helps.
The official uniform.
The Texas uniform.
Yeah.
You see it here first. Okay. Grew up all over the place. Where'd you go to school?
I went to the University of Arkansas. Played tennis there for a couple years, and then transitioned into just wanting to have a college experience and all of that, and that led me to music, and music led me to marketing, and then I thought I should go to an advertising agency. So my career really started in advertising at BBDO Atlanta back.
Yeah, that was my next question. For me, I went to school for IT, never even thought about marketing or advertising, and found my way there. So
yeah, I mean, for me, it was kind of the same. I didn't really know what I wanted to do out of school, but I'd grown up, I actually played South by Southwest in 2000, so shout out to 2000.
Nice.
And thought I was going to be a musician, was going to be a rock star, and that didn't work out that way, and so I started to interview and called a bunch of agencies in the Atlanta area. That's where I was at the time, and I didn't really describe it this way, so it'll sound smarter now than it did then, but it was like I was doing all the calls to the radio stations. I was designing all of our flyers, doing all the marketing, like calling, booking shows, and managing the band, managing our budget, doing everything. And so I was like really managing a brand. Like we were building a brand and trying to design the way that we would go to market with like the experience we created through music in order to, build our business. And so I think I was honestly just weird enough in the interview that they're like, would you like an internship? And so I called my wife and was like, hey, we're moving to Atlanta. Like,
That's
2 weeks,
wild.
let's go. Yeah.
That's really wild. So would you say that was your first gig ever? Like, did you have one in high school or anything like that?
In high school, growing up as an athlete, like tennis was the job. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. It's really cool that the band ultimately brought you into a career. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us how you ended up at IBM.
So it's kind of a long story. So I've always been agency side up until IBM. I started at BBDO Atlanta, traditional advertising, cut my teeth in TV, radio, print, all that kind of stuff, and was a traditional account person. And sort of throughout that career, journeyed through multiple agencies and kind of moved into digital and social strategy, and had found my way to Fleischman Hillard back in 2012, and I was leading like global social strategy for clients like YouTube and Google and some of the work that we were doing with them. And I had a really kind of cool role towards the end of my time there. The role was called Global Innovation Lab Leader, which was our kind of cheeky way of basically saying I helped design capabilities that we would sell into clients and ultimately sell to other clients. And so I was in this role of like being a builder, and I got introduced to Michelle Peluso, who's the CMO at IBM at the time. And she started to describe sort of her vision for what she was doing in marketing at IBM. And so she's a big believer in agile marketing, very data-driven, and she was establishing these discipline leaders inside of the company. So she wanted a content discipline leader, an analytics discipline leader, product marketing, and social. And so I came to IBM in 2017 with sort of this mission to kind of help IBM modernize the way that it leveraged social media. At the time, IBM had a little over 1,800 social media channels globally, which is a lot of channels.
That's a crazy number, though, like 1,800.
Yeah, there were 450 plus people globally hitting keyboards, making content. It's probably 70,000 assets, give or take, organic social a year. 50% of those got 5 or fewer likes. So it's a lot of waste. And so a lot of my role, or part of it, was kind of auditing that space, using data and like trying to understand like what works and how do we do more of that and less of this other stuff that no one seems to care about. And so it was a lot of just operational design, building management systems, finding ways to connect data from like the systems that we were using to what marketing was using kind of elsewhere in the organization, and just kind of building some, I would say, better education and understanding of like what is social good at doing and what is it bad at doing, and moving forward in that way.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about social as of late is we used to think about social as just a channel for you to pump your brand, right? Like that's all it was. And I think your purview is interesting because of its being content, right? It's a bigger picture than social. And you were sharing about the philosophy that you guys have around what content means. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like about my sort of random title of social and content experience is that I get to think about, I have to think about what's the experience that our content actually creates, what emotional response does someone have, and therefore are we creating value for someone when it hits their feeds and this, that, and the other thing. And so the way that we really started to evolve our approach to social over the last couple of years was, yes, we want to talk about the brand, we want to create inspirational content, we want to show really cool, sexy imagery of a quantum computer chandelier that is super inspirational. That doesn't necessarily drive the business with customers that don't understand who we are. So we had this sort of mindset around everything that we do needs to demonstrate, educate, or fascinate our audience. So yeah, we're really good at fascinate. Our organic audience loves it when we talk about a computer, show a mainframe, whatever.
If you haven't seen this chandelier, you should Google it.
It's super cool.
Amazing.
It doesn't look anything like an actual computer. But the reality is there's a lot of our clients, even people that pay IBM to do things for them, don't know what IBM does today, right? They might be connected into one part of IBM, and IBM's made up of, I don't know, we'll call it dozens of multi-billion-dollar businesses inside of it. So if a CEO is using us just for services, but they don't understand what we can do in security, or they don't know what we can do in cloud or data and AI, then we're missing this opportunity to provide ultimate value to the client. And so when we think about demonstrate and educate, demonstration is demo content, really showcasing what we can do with and through our technology and with our partners. And then education is thought leadership content, explainer content, helping people understand very complicated things about technology. So that's kind of how we've structured that.
I think starting with that as what you're really wanting to create is so much more important than just the shiny object or whatever the new product is or whatever that.
Yeah, I think I was in a roundtable discussion earlier today, and we were talking about this specifically, and the thing that I found interesting over the last couple of years, because I'm not a technology guy. I came from agency, great storyteller, creative strategy, whatever, and then you come into an organization where you're okay, now I actually have to figure out how to tell this to someone. I have to talk about data and AI to an audience that is a bunch of data analysts. They're data scientists. They're
they can call bullshit.
Well, totally. And I think that's what's been really powerful about this whole idea of demonstrate, educate, and fascinate, which I did not coin. Someone on my team that's
by the way,
smarter than me did it.
We're stealing it.
Yeah, you can use it. It's great. Lists of 3 is always the way that I kind of do things. But one of our sort of he was a social intelligence leader for my organization, super smart guy, and he came to his manager and said, I want to create content for the data science community that they actually pay attention to. And we're well, what do you mean? We talk about data and AI all the time, blah, 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 just like every other B2B company does, and it's all looks the same. And so he's I want to make this, and he pulls us to the subreddit of Data is Beautiful, which is an amazing subreddit if you're into data.
I've seen that one. That's
into
cool.
Data. Very cool data visualizations. He's we need to make this. We need to talk to them in in their language, essentially. And so for us, it's been about really trying to understand of all of those different audiences that we have to serve at any given time, how do they not only consume content, but how do they make content? And can we actually be a part of that with them, whether it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on LinkedIn, but building it so that it's something that they can appreciate and just, I don't know, have a better experience with than we typically were creating.
Well, I think to make things practical, you talk about the platforms a little bit, and when I think IBM, or I think any B2B brand, TikTok is so far down the list is what I would think a B2B brand should be doing, and you guys were first. So want to share a little bit of perspective on the platforms themselves?
So I think, who's learned something on TikTok ever? Anybody learned something on TikTok? I learned more on TikTok than I learned on any other social platform, period, right? I, as an individual user, learn about cooking, I learned about business strategy, I learned about whatever TikTok has figured out that I want to learn about, which is sometimes things I didn't even know I wanted to learn about, and then I learn about it, and it's awesome.
I hate when that happens.
And so you see things like Teach Talk, Tech Talk, there's all these different streams of content that are about education. So it's a super, it fits for sure. But prior to really understanding that, we just wanted to use TikTok as a platform for experimentation. And like I had a rule with one of my directs for a number of years where I was like, yes, we're going to look at the data every month and we're going to talk about like how many engagements and how much this or that we create. But like I also want a slide that's just your list of firsts. So what's the first thing that you did that you've never tried before? What's the first? And so it'd be this awesome like exercise of, are we doing new and interesting things that we want to try? And I'm like, I'm not going to grade you on how effective they were. We're having a discussion about just wanting to experiment. And so that's part of like, I really wanted to bring agency culture and creative energy into a corporate environment that like kind of just needed to be given permission to do that. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. On my team, we have something called what ifs. So we have a big group think, let's say, when we talk, and just throw out random what ifs. What if we tried this? What if we did that?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I think measuring it and capturing it is super productive too.
Yeah, for sure.
When you talked about like evolving, trying new things, and we talked about the Think by IBM conference. Mm-hmm. You guys won an Addy for that. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, similar to South by and all these other conferences that exist out in the world, like IBM has their own thing. Salesforce has Dreamforce, and IBM has Think. Back in 2017, 2018, 2019, it's like an in-person, 20,000 people, like awesome, just brand love fest for IBM. Like if you're an IBMer, it's the best thing ever. Like IBM logos, the B, it's awesome. And then, 2020 happened and we all went virtual and we're all in our basements. And so the first year of Think virtual was like, can we just get it done? Like we had to, the head of events, global events, was like, we're doing this and we're doing it in 60 days. And it was insane. And then year 2, it's like, it's still virtual. No one's quite yet coming back to these experiences. And
which it's so good to be back. So good.
But for me, like when I think about like the experience of going to a virtual conference, it's like, how much am I going to enjoy jumping off of my meeting WebEx to watch a WebEx of a thing? And so like one of the things that we wanted to build was a way for someone that's virtually attending an event to have like a physical in-person experience. And so we developed 3 different AR experiences. One was it's basically the logo of the event. So it was this cube that would animate and you could interact with, that was interesting and fun. But like the coolest ones were, we did a Z mainframe and we did a quantum chandelier. And so we got to work with product and design and like actually made an AR experience where you're sitting in your basement in Connecticut, which I was at the time, in pajamas watching Think, which I probably was at the time. I could put that quantum chandelier in my room, spin it around, get really close to it, animate it, learn things about it. And so it just like brought, I think, this like element of, yeah, I'm virtual and I'm by myself, but I get to go interact and like learn and experience content in like kind of a new way.
Yeah, that's cool, especially knowing that you have a captive audience, right? You have a captive audience of people that really love and care about the brand, so they're like, I want to play with that type of thing.
Well, and the logo that we did was really fun because we were able to prompt IBMers to create a piece of UGC. So like in the AR experience, you could snap a video or a photo of it and then share it to social. So one of the ways that we kind of launched into Think was just asking IBMers globally to like make their own piece of content using the hashtag and the AR experience. And so you got this really cool brand expression of Think out in the world where like there was someone in front of the Eiffel Tower, there's someone in San Francisco. It's just totally global, but just because we made this little, app.
A thing to be able to interact with.
Yeah.
So having done this, did this big cool thing, won the sexy awards, do you use it going forward?
So this is one of the challenges of like high investment, like things like that, is that sometimes, product changes, right? So like Z mainframe gets updated every 2 years, quantum chandelier, now there's a system 1, it moves to system 2. So like that content's dated and to refresh it is very expensive. And so like I've learned that through this experience, I've learned it through doing physical in-person experiences when I was agency side. Like we did this, I don't remember which year it was for South by, but Google Store had this like arcade claw game thing. So if any of y'all waited in line for that back in the day, my team developed it. And it was super cool, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars to make this giant arcade claw that a user could walk inside of and take a selfie, which was super dope. Or they could submit emojis on social and then we would actually play the game for them with the emojis and then send them really cool Google products. And once we did that great event, which like trended, we won a Webby for it, all this stuff, there was nowhere to take it. Every time you wanted to do it, it was a refabrication of almost the same amount.
Build it all over again. Yeah, so that part's hard. Yeah, that part's really hard.
Yeah, but I think we have to choose our moments, right? Like we have to decide like when is it the right time to overinvest in a really amazing experience, because you and I were talking about this the other day, like there's, I think, this opportunity for brands to really focus on building experiential things that become like the conversation on social. Like we spend a lot of time as marketers listening to social to find the thing that we can make for social, and that's great, and we should be doing that, but like, are we as brands like designing things that I want to talk about or that you want to talk about? Like that to me is like a really cool space for brands to play, because if you have the resources and the time and the energy, you can build a moment that someone's like, that is cool. I want to actually elevate this brand because they did something special. So I don't want to say like doing the AR experience isn't the right play, because I think in that moment it was, but you also have to walk into it knowing like, that's going to be a one-time use
thing. It's a moment
thing.
in time.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really cool about the whole evolution of our business, though, is now that we're kind of getting back to in-person, finding those moments. You talked about your brand campaign, where you can really take things and amplify them. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was one of the more interesting things about the reach that you guys had from that, like building on that same point.
Yeah, I mean, a good learning for me. So when I started to talk to IBM about this job, I interviewed with 3 people. I interviewed the CMO, the chief communications officer, and the woman who ended up being my boss. And the chief communications officer was a guy named John Iwata, who's this like icon in the brand world, like just one of the smartest people I've ever interacted with, and the scariest interview I've ever had by far. Like I was just like so convinced I did not get that job, felt like I had bombed it. But one of the things that he asked me was just like, hey, like, how are you going to get every IBMer on social, being social? And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that. Like, I want people that want to be on social, creating content about IBM because they're proud of it, and putting that on social. And I still believe that fundamentally, but I've kind of learned like over the last year, specifically with this brand campaign, how powerful employee advocacy can really be. And I do see that as like a way more viable option to create meaningful reach through organic than my brand channels, because my brand channels talk to the same 14 million followers we have all the time. Like they know IBM, but like our network of IBMers, over 280,000 people talking to their network, they have lots of people in their network that don't know who we are, what we're doing. And so when we launched Let's Create, which was our new brand platform last year, we did all the classic paid social campaigns, organic content, all the way, brand to demand, all the way down. And it was great. But the most powerful thing that I learned was when we launched with IBMers and we gave them a clear prompt and a way to participate, and we made a system for them to be able to utilize the content easily and whatever. Like in that week, they created more collective reach on LinkedIn in that 1 week than the at IBM like hero channel on LinkedIn does in an entire year. And that's an account with 14 million followers. Like that's kind of impressive.
That's not a small owned social channel, so that's pretty incredible.
So it's like I've really come around on this idea of like how do you properly leverage the employee base and like make it like easy for them to do it, but also do it at moments in time. Like not every day. We don't need to spam the internet with what IBM's doing, but like when it's the right thing, like go hard there. And then also like how do you really partner with the executives inside of the company and like work with them to leverage their collective influence out on social.
Yeah, so we did get the little nod on time.
Okay.
So I like to end all of these before I open it up to questions with a silly thing with your phone. So you have your phone. We're mobile first media company, so I like to try and embarrass people a little bit. So open the phone, go to your calls, like your phone dialer calls. Who's the last person you talked to for more than 5 minutes?
For more than 5 minutes?
It's an exercise for you all to check out. It's kind of important.
It's my mom.
I love that.
It's my mom.
That's amazing.
Yeah, on the way here.
It's good to look at. It's like, who do I actually talk to in the digital world?
Yeah.
We text on Slack and everything else all the time. So that's good. All right, so number 2, camera roll.
Yeah.
What's that last photo look like?
What's the last photo?
Yep.
Well, I'm not going to tell you the last one.
Okay, you can add it.
I'm just kidding. I took a screen grab of LinkedIn post from our former CEO, Ginny Rometty. So she's publishing on social. So when Jenny was at IBM, she was a I will never publish on social leader. Like she's non-social CEO, non-social executive, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You're the leader of a global brand with 400,000 employees at the time. Like you have your audience. Like go do that well. But now that she's out in the world, it's been really fun to see her not only start to publish on social and leverage her influence, but this is actually her posting about a post that she already did. So like in case you missed it.
Yeah, by the way, you should see my opinion.
Remarketing on social now. Like that's insane to me that she's doing that. So I sent that to a friend.
Okay, that's another great one. So check your camera roll. Last one.
Okay.
So whatever app you use to listen to music, Spotify, Apple, whatever, what's the last thing you're playing?
It's Apple Music. I'm sorry. I know that's lame.
There's some people that don't like that so much.
I know. The last song I played?
And even more fitting because you're a musician.
You know, I'm not exactly sure, but we have gotten into Inhaler. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Inhaler. It's Bono's son that sings.
Yeah.
So it's like cool, like an old guy like me, like it's like, oh, you too, Bono. And they're like really good. We saw them at Emos this week on Monday. Like,
oh,
great.
really? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. So check them out if you haven't heard them.
Inhaler.
And that's us. Time for a question.
Cool.
If anyone has any questions. Killed it.
Yeah.
Killed it. No questions. Great. Thank you,
thanks,
guys.
y'all.
Thank you.